Thank you for attending Wyndham Active Transportation public engagement meeting. This is a project that Wyndham and GPCOG, which is the Greater Council of Governments, have teamed together to hire a consultant to look at our town and our growth area, basically our residential growth area, to see what kind of potential sidewalk pedestrian connections and come up with a plan for the town of Wyndham that we can use to apply for grants and to get competing helping money money to help us do projects through the process of doing these plans. So that's what the effort is here. I'm going to let I'm Steve Pulio, the planning director here at Wyndham. I thought everybody knew me. Sometimes people say, I know you, but I don't know. But anyway, we're glad that you're all here. There's pizza in the back. There's some water. I know there's probably more pizza. There's like a pizza per person here, so we don't expect you to eat a whole pizza by yourself. Our town engineer might be able to do it. So we're looking for your input. The team here is Sebago, our consulting team, and they're going to explain to you what they found through existing conditions and kind of go through the purpose of this plan. That's going to be done by Ron, who is a planner for GPCOG. And at this time, I'm going to let them take over the meeting. And I have to apologize, but I have a replacement knee surgery coming up December 15th, and right now I'm after a 10-hour day, 11-hour day, I'm pretty hurting, so I may slide out, but we're recording this and I'll review it and we'll talk with the team if there's anything that I need to get involved with. With that, I'm going to introduce Nikki. Ron first, Nikki second, and then Aaron third. And over in the corner, we do have some staff here. We have Amanda Lassard, who is our senior planner and project manager for the planning department, and has a good understanding of what we're doing here. And we have Mark Ariente, the town engineer, as well, who has helped us apply for certain grants through these programs. With that, Ron, thank you very much. And I'm going to slide up.
Thanks, Steve. Steve did a great job of introducing the purpose of this meeting and this project specifically, so I won't go too much into covering that again. But so the format of this meeting tonight is we'll be hearing from Nikki and Aaron from Sebago Technics to go over the background of the projects, specifically in the work that's been leading up to this point. And then after that, we'll do a facilitated discussion. So you'll notice throughout the room here there's there's 5 different maps of the different residential growth areas and the town boundary itself that Steve had mentioned. We're going to run through a dot exercise, which I'll explain later after the presentation here, and then folks will be able to use that as an opportunity to share feedback using a set of discussion questions, which we'll share at the end of the slides as well. So with that, I'll hand it over to Nikki and Aaron.
Thanks, Ron. Nikki Conant. I am the Director of Project Delivery at Sebago Technics. With me today is Aaron Rajuj, who is one of our transportation engineers. Really, the whole purpose of being here is to get public engagement and input. So we're going to try to speed through the presentation component a little quicker so we can get more time to spend with you all and hear from you. So just a little agenda of what we are anticipating for our time together, which Ron kind of already covered, so I won't necessarily go into it in much more detail. But first, starting off, what is active transportation? So setting kind of a common definition for us all to utilize moving forward. It's really the focus of any sort of non-motorized transport. So think walking, biking, any of those ways that we get from point A to point B without a motor. Ron and Steve also covered a little bit about the project background and some of the goals that we're undertaking. Specifically, our focus areas for this effort include those 4 growth areas that we were talking about. So they are the North Wyndham growth area, the Wyndham Center growth area, South Wyndham growth area, and the residential growth area. So those are the different areas that you see on the maps around the room. Some of these maps are included in our presentation. We very much realize from where you're sitting, you can't see them very well. They're more just for reference purposes, so just hang tight. You'll get a chance to get a little closer up and kind of see them in more detail moving forward. Just an overall of what we've accomplished thus far. Sebago Technics, we've got a team of planners, transportation engineers, GIS team members that spent some time inventorying the existing conditions of these areas to establish kind of a baseline of what's out there today. We had over 50 miles of roadways inventoried. Things we were looking for were sidewalks, crosswalks, bike facilities in each of our growth areas. 16 miles of sidewalks were mapped and graded, and they were graded on a sliding scale of poor to excellent condition. Aaron will talk a little bit more about that. One of the things that we identified through our study areas were there weren't any necessarily striped or signed bicycle facilities in any of our areas, so that was just something that came out of our existing conditions analysis. And other patterns that we noticed, sidewalks often exist on one side of the road. Some of our internal subdivision sidewalks, so think our residential developed areas, don't necessarily connect to larger infrastructure that gets you further than just within where people are living. There's limited options for walking around school campuses, and that many of the existing features aren't necessarily up to our current ADA compliance considerations. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Aaron to talk a little bit more specifics about each of the growth areas, and then we'll close out a little bit of what to anticipate with as a part of the facilitated exercise.
Thanks, everyone. Like Nikki said, my name is Aaron Rajesh. I'm a transportation engineer with Sebago Technics. The first growth area that we looked at was the North Windham growth area, centered around the intersection of 302 and Tannenberg Trail. Essentially, this growth area is approximately 3.25 square miles. We inventoried approximately 5 miles of sidewalks. 88.6% of those graded between fair and excellent. Throughout the slides, you'll see this qualifier of fair to excellent. Essentially, what we mean by fair is observable minor structural defects, such as cracking or ruts, but it's still navigable by the user. And the excellent grade essentially means it's new construction. So kind of the idea with this qualifier was to kind of give you guys an idea of what percentage we believe would generally be an average user would be able to navigate. Getting back to the slide, we mapped approximately 30 crosswalks, 12 of those being controlled by either a rectangular rapid flashing beacon at a mid-block crossing or a pedestrian signal at a signalized intersection. You'll see the picture in the lower right taken at the time of inventorying of a pedestrian or bicyclist trying to navigate across 4 lanes of traffic on 302. Hopefully, as a part of this project, we'll be able to kind of create more crossing alternatives in some areas and hopefully reduce this kind of situation if we can. Some of the overall themes we found in the North Windham growth area, extensive sidewalk infrastructure along the east side of 302, as well as continuous sidewalk along the north side of Tannenberg Trail. We had pedestrian signals at signalized intersections, specifically at 302 and Tannenberg Trail. Some of the gaps that maybe are lacking, minimal sidewalks on the western side of 302, limited crosswalk opportunities on the south side of Tannenberg Trail, and kind of sidewalks around Manchester School, specifically at Route 302, the west side of Route 302. Some of those sidewalks are in pretty severe condition. Let's see, safety context. We did some research into Maine DOT's crash history. The 8 and 6 pedestrian and cyclist crashes, respectively, reflect the number of crashes present in the growth area over the latest 10-year period. And then, as Nikki briefly described earlier, some of the pedestrian buttons at the intersections aren't up to the most recent ADA compliance standards. So the second growth area, the Windham Center growth area, generally bound by Roosevelt Trail to the east and River Road to the west. This area includes the RSU 14 high school campus in the center, as well as the public safety and community gardens to the south. This area is a little bit bigger, 3.46 square miles in size, with approximately 5 miles of sidewalk inventoried. About 92% of those sidewalks graded from that fair to excellent qualifier. We mapped 25 crosswalks in this area, with only 3 of them having controls that we spoke about earlier. Some of the things that are working in this growth area, we have good sidewalk infrastructure generally around high school campus. Those are in pretty good condition, with some crossings and detectable warning fields and such. Some gaps. Basically, we found that there wasn't many sidewalk connections between residential subdivisions and the high school. That's kind of definitely a theme that we found, as well as in the residential growth area. And also the communal facilities such as the community gardens or the basketball courts adjacent to the public safety building are isolated from the residential neighborhoods in that area. Some of the crash context, we only had 2 pedestrian and 1 cycle crash in the last 10 years. There's 1 high crash location as identified by Maine DOT, which is located at River Road and Wyndham Center Road. Essentially, high crash locations are classified by Maine DOT as intersections or roadway segments which experience 8 or more crashes over a 3-year time period. And these intersections also have a critical rate factor over 1. Essentially, the critical rate factor, not to get too far into the weeds, but it basically tries to quantify the frequency of crashes and compare it to the statewide average for similar traffic locations.
Is that high crash area of the road in Wyndham Center, is that since the roundabout or prior to the roundabout?
That I'm not sure.
When was the roundabout installed? When was the roundabout installed?
Probably 4 years, 5 years ago.
So it's probably post. Any of the high crash locations we're defining are
Sure.
within the most recent 3-year period. Yep.
It's still be going away.
It's possible that it has spillover from the previous period because they are looking at 3-year increments, but that's something that we would have to look at in more detail.
They built the roundabout to prevent the high crashes.
Yeah.
The third growth area we studied was the South Wyndham growth area, generally bounded by River Road to the east and the Gorham-Wyndham town border to the west, which is actually the Pleasant River. This area was the most land use diverse as it contained several residential zones and has also portions of commercial and industrial zones. Specifically the Village Commercial District, which is centered on the Depot Street and Main Street intersection. We expect to have a higher density of businesses in this area, or so we expect to have a higher pedestrian traffic in that area as well. This area is relatively small, approximately 1.1 square miles. We had 2 miles of sidewalk mapped with a 91% sidewalk graded between fair and excellent. This growth area had the most recent sidewalk construction, as you can see by kind of the ratio of controlled crosswalks to total crosswalks. 8 total crosswalks with 6 controlled. All 6 were controlled by those rectangular rapid flashing beacons that you see out there now. Some overall themes for this growth area. Like I said, highest quality sidewalk due to recent construction. 6 of 8 are equipped with RFBs. The Mountain Division Trail provides regional multimodal connections for anyone looking to hike or bike through those. Some of the gaps, the quality of the pedestrian facilities obviously degrades as you move away from that Main Street Depot Street intersection, just because of the new construction at the Main Street Depot Street intersection. Safety context, 2 pedestrians, 0 cycles. We had 2 high crash locations at Chute Road, Depot Street, River Road, and at Mallison Falls and River Road. Yeah, sure.
Just an observation, there's 0 cyclist crashes that occurred. Yeah, that's right where the Mountain Division Road crossed over Gambo and over the Gray Road.
Yep.
We think there'd be more, there's so much traffic crossing there, I think there'd be more, it's quite a positive number. Even before the crossing was put up a couple
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. Final growth area is a residential growth area, 2.65 square miles in size, approximately 4 miles of sidewalk, with 88% graded from fair to excellent. We didn't find any striped crosswalks in this growth area. Let's see, the overall themes for the final growth area. Sidewalks were present in the individual residential subdivisions, but there weren't a lot of connections between those subdivisions. 0 pedestrian facilities were located along Varney Mills Road, kind of isolating those neighborhoods that are kind of fronting along that road specifically. And there weren't any commercial or civic destinations within the growth area, hence the name residential, but opportunities to connect potentially to other growth areas may be a possibility. Crash locations here. We had 1 high crash location at Falmouth Road and Varney Mills Road, with 1 pedestrian and 0 cyclist crashes reported. We'll talk about.
So in a moment here, Ron's gonna lead you through some dot exercises at each of the stations. I'll let him give a little bit of an introduction there, but I always like to lead off these discussions with some shared things to kind of think about. So if you see the 2 pictures up on the slides, things that we're really focused on hearing from you all about are sidewalk infrastructure, crosswalk locations, as we talked about before, the Americans with Disabilities Act, so ADA. Those show up as detectable warning fields, so those plates basically with the raised bumps, audible and tactile push buttons. So anytime we have a rapid rectangular flashing beacon, so those signs that you can basically push a button and they light up all the way around, we want buttons on those that are telling you to cross and also have tactile functions to support our community that needs those additional accommodations. So those are things to think about and consider. Where we're talking about crosswalks as well, other things to kind of keep in mind and note are the different applications that we might utilize with crosswalks. And so if we're placing them on corridors that may have speed conditions or places that we might need to calm traffic, those are things that we want to hear about as well, because there might be different ways that we can implement crosswalks with raised island features or things of that nature. So like to put all of that out there to kind of spur ideas and inspiration. Similarly on the bicycle accommodation front, given that we didn't necessarily identify any locations where bicycle facilities were striped or signed as such, here are a couple of different applications of how bicycle facilities can be implemented, either as dedicated lane spaces, shared lanes, depending on your speed availability. So I just like to kind of put all of those things out there for you to think about. And I do want to just quickly offer too, is there anything from a technical standpoint, like things that either Aaron or I said that could help from a clarity standpoint? Any definitions? Yeah.
I just have a question here. This is very much pedestrian-based and seems here.
Yep.
But I'm concerned about bicycles and just you're expanding sidewalks, but you're not expanding anything like shoulders.
So that's all. Those are things that we want to hear. So that is a component of this. Of if you have specific interests and concerns on the bicycle accommodations component, let's target where those are, because the next phase of our efforts are going to be looking at where we're finding themes to see what cost it would take to implement those facilities.
As a related matter, these look like islands in the sea. How are they connected?
What do you mean by that?
Is there any way to get from the residential over to the South Wyndham by bicycle, other than going on a road that's not marked?
It's a great question. It's something that if that was identified as a need and desire that we would.
Can I just say, one of the activity areas is a townwide map.
Yeah.
So we invite you to kind of offer suggestions on where there are needed connections, and we certainly can offer some feedback on. I think what you covered existing conditions. You'll also see on some of these plans that there are planned improvements. So the map at the back is DOT's North Wyndham Moves, and there's lots of planned sidewalks and a multi-use path. And the town is planning a sidewalk from the high school to the community park on 202. But thinking about how we connect those growth areas, which was also a theme in our open space plan for recreational use, but to think about it in the context of from a transportation user perspective, we want to hear about where you think it's unsafe or where you as a pedestrian or cyclist or other user not in a vehicle want to make those connections from maybe where you live and where you work.
Thank you, Amanda. That was helpful. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Ron to get us started on our facilitation exercise. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so that concludes the presentation portion of the meeting for today. So now we're going to get into sort of the facilitated discussion piece using this dot exercise that we've been talking about. So we'll have members of our project team stationed at 5 different stations here throughout the room, one for each of the maps. We'll be handing out stickers, which I should grab. So I'll be handing everyone a set of 5 red stickers and a set of 5 blue stickers. And the stickers culminate with some of the prompts that are on the screen here. So these are some of the sort of discussion pieces we were hoping to address in the meeting today with you folks. The first one, where do you have concerns about sidewalks or bike facilities? Where do you think improvements are needed? That one will culminate with the red stickers that we'll hand everybody for the purpose of placing on the maps. And then where would you like to see new sidewalks or bike facilities, or where are there gaps in the current system? Those will be the blue stickers. So think red, concerns of existing. So as Aaron mentioned, some of the sidewalks and sidewalk facilities in severe condition. And blue, think of new. And then the other 2, we can just sort of talk about at small groups and, leave comments or such with members of the project team or on Post-it notes. So with that, we can break out into groups.
Can I just say one last thing? Because we recorded this presentation because for those folks that, and this is being broadcast live right now, for those folks that can't be here, there's an online survey that will have an interactive mapping exercise that mirrors this exercise you're doing here in person. But you certainly are welcome, for those that are here, to also take the online survey, which will be up tonight, to give you an opportunity if you have more written comments or you think of something later. And that will be open for 3 weeks until the 24th on the town's website, and we'll post about that again coming soon. But thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. That's important. So with that, that's the end of the presentation portion of the meeting. Do you have a question?
Do you have any information on how much people are actually using the sidewalks currently? Like, do you need more sidewalks? Or we're more of a semi-rural sort of town.
You're right.
I think that's why the focus has been on the growth areas, that's where the highest density residential is, and where there's a mix of uses that give people the opportunity to not be in a vehicle, but want to be on foot or on wheels and not be getting in their vehicle to do some of those local kind of trips. So that's really the focus here is, yes, there are parts of Windham that are rural, and we're not suggesting that we need expensive infrastructure everywhere in Windham. The idea here too is that this is kind of the ideal of where everyone thinks we need these facilities, and then we'll plan accordingly on how to fund them and prioritize them. And so, kind of, we're looking for your feedback.
But the question was, did you do any?
No, we have. No, we don't know that, and I think it's a chicken and the egg situation, and maybe Sebago Tech can tell you that too from their experiences. That we observe people, I think, all the time in different town staff of people walking in unsafe conditions, but we don't count them. They talked about Varney Mill Road not having, any facilities. I see people walking all the time on Park Road and Pope Road around here, and it's not safe, likely, but they're doing it for a variety of reasons. But we haven't done any explicit counts. But I think that's a good comment if that is a metric that would inform how if we decide to make an investment, I think, in the infrastructure.
In response to that, I feel like the town is growing very fast, and I think that's good for all of us. We'd rather be in a thriving community than something that's dying. But I think the more opportunity for transportation and exercise without using a vehicle, the better. the more sidewalks, the more wide shoulders, the more bike lanes, the better. I know cost is an issue, but there's always gonna be a need for it, and especially since the pandemic, I've seen more and more people trying to get out and walk and ride their bikes. And really, truly, does anybody feel safe riding a bicycle with cars coming up behind them? Not at all. So that discourages that kind of activity. And even using it as a means of transportation, not just exercise, but
Sure.
getting from point A to point B, to stop polluting, and if you don't have the money to have a car. So I would love to see more sidewalks, more wide shoulders, more bike lanes, more ways to get from here to there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, thank you. I think your comment hints at the sort of the purpose of this meeting is what are folks in the community, what are folks in the room interested in terms of, you know, expansion of these types of facilities. So yeah, I appreciate that comment. So yeah, we can. I guess we'll leave the discussion prompts up for us to refer to sort of as we're going about. But like I said, this concludes the presentation portion. Now we'll get set up here at these individual mapping stations and hand out sticky dots.